So I'm going to tell you 3 very crazy stories about the paranormal that made me believe and to know that there is more to what we actually see. The reason I'm telling you these 3 stories is because there's a lot of fake stuff on YouTube and all these other social media about the paranormal, some believable, some unbelievable. But I'm going to tell you mine, and they're personal stories, and they're very crazy. And so you're probably going to think I'm crazy too, but that's okay, because I have proof for a lot of them that they actually happened. So we're going to start in 1972 first. I was 6 years old, so this is about, you could say, ETs. When I was a young child, I grew up in Wisconsin, and every year we would drive down a couple times a year to North Carolina, where my mother is from, and visit my grandparents at their house. And like I said, this was 1972. I believe it was Christmas, and I was in their little den, and I was watching TV, and my dad said it was time, to go to bed. And I was tired, so he picked me up, and he was carrying me down the hallway to the bedroom. So he was walking forward, I was looking behind his back. All of a sudden, time just seemed to stand still. Just everything just stopped. And this being stepped out from the doorway and just stood there. And I remember feeling not afraid, not anything, just like, wow, what is this? And the creature was, and I didn't know what this was back then, did look very like a reptile. He was very tall, and he, was a person. Outside of his skin looked different, and the clothes he was wearing was different than ours, and he had something straddled to this on his side. I don't know if that was a weapon. I never thought it was a weapon. There was something there. And he just looked at me, and I stared at him, and like I said, everything had stopped. And then I just got this sense of, we're here. And he nodded. And then he kind of stepped back, and then everything started back up again. And I remember as a child, I thought, wow, it was odd. And I tried to tell people what that was, but of course, they blew it off. It was 1972. Nobody believed in ETs at all back then. And now I've had other encounters. See, now I hear about, growing up now, it wasn't until later on in life I heard about reptilians. But then people would say all this bad stuff about reptilians. I can't say anything to that because mine wasn't a bad experience. It wasn't didn't feel like a bad person at all. It just, the emotions seemed very, very kind of flat, it was odd. Kind of like if they had a sense of humor, it would have been a very, very dry sense of humor. It was kind of like that. That was the first crazy story. But see, why I believe that stuff is happening now is because I actually seen that. And this happened over a half century ago. I still remember that person, exactly what they look like to a T. And it's like a memory of someone. It's not a dream I remembered from a half a century ago. It was like, no, that happened. I know that. And I was so happy when they started disclosure. And they started saying, no, there's things in the air, UAPs, because that kind of validated that experience. I'm like, okay, yeah, there are things. There are things, and that's cool. Now, the second one that happened was, this one is really odd too. The house that I lived in when I was younger is actually the same house I lived in when I had that ET experience. I wasn't at that house, but same house I lived in. Me and my cousin, we were listening to one of those old-time phonographs. So if you're Gen X or something, we had like those plastic phonographs, and you put the record on it and listen to it. And we were upstairs, and we were listening to Peter and the Wolf. It was a symphony, and it was doing Peter and the Wolf, this little record. And we were just on the floor, and we were just intensely listening to it. And all of a sudden, the plug came out from the wall on its own, and it hovered there probably about like 6 inches to a foot away from it, and then plugged itself back in. We ran so freaking fast. I mean, we slid down the steps on our butt. We were screaming and yelling. We were telling all the adults, oh my God, the plug unplugged. And they came upstairs, checked everything. They're like, no, everything's fine. And that kind of got let go. Here's the weird thing. When I believe I was about 35, 40 years old at the time. So this was kind of like 30, 35 years later. My cousin, who I hadn't seen in years and years and years, she owned a bar. And I went down to that bar and I was talking to her and we were catching up on old times. And all of a sudden I just looked at her and I said, do you remember the plug? And when I said that, she just turned white as a ghost and her eyes opened up. She goes, that was real, wasn't it? And I said, it was. I said, that's odd. We both remembered it. We both pushed it off to the side, but when it was brought up, she thought she was dreaming it all these years too. And I thought maybe it was fake too all these years until we came back together. No, we had the same experience together and we watched it. To this day, she still remembers it too. She's my age, we're the exact same age. The third thing that happened that's really odd, in that same house, so maybe this is the house, it's so freaking weird. I used to play with these two kids down the road. It was about a block and a half away. There was one house I used to go to, and I remember it was a light blue colored house. It was light blue, and I would knock on the door and go in there, and this girl was there, and I would go in the house. Her parents were never home. Now, at the time, I believe we were about like 7, 8 years old. All these things happened to me within a span. I was 6 when the first one started. Within 2 years, all these things happened. I'd go in the house. I remember there was a crib in the house. I could see out a patio back door. There was toys all over the place. Like I knew she had brothers or sisters, but they were never there, and neither were her parents. And I would go by her house, and then we would go across the street to this little boy's house. And his parents were never home either. And we would go play up in the attic. All three of us, we'd go sit up in the attic, we'd explore, we'd play pirates and all this other stuff. And I distinctively remember this one too, because one time it was in the afternoon and he said he was hungry. He said, let's go downstairs and get something to eat. And we went downstairs and he went in the cupboard and got a can of corned beef. I had never heard of corned beef then, but he had a can of corned beef. I remember all of us ate it. We sat around and we ate it. We just ate it out of the can. We took spoonfuls out and we'd go play. We did this for a little while. And then I moved on and, that was it. He lived in this 2-story house and all that. And then the girl lived across the street. I never ever saw their parents. And I knew them it was less, I don't know how long for, maybe only a couple months. We were friends until I believe we ended up moving away. When I went back to go into that neighborhood and look up that neighborhood, I was asking about those houses. They weren't there anymore. Apparently those houses never ever existed. They were never there. There was 2 other houses in its place. And they were newer houses. And I was like, what houses used to be there? Those houses never existed. And I remember the day that I found that out, I mean, my heart just skipped a beat. I was like, wait, what? I was like, how could that be? I played with those kids. They were kids I played with, I grew up with, Like I said, I never saw their parents or anything. So I don't know what that was. I'm not going to pretend to know what that was. I've even asked, even being a medium and all that, I've asked my guides and all that, and it's pretty much I don't really get much about that at all. So those experiences, see, they're crazy experiences, but see, for me, they really did happen. And like the phonograph, I have that validation. Somebody else was there with me. And then I knew about that kind of alien before that kind of alien was even out into the public. I described it completely, And with the kids, I played with them. I remember the corned beef hash. I remember all that. Their memories, just like I would remember going to the store with my grandmother, or that I walked to school in kindergarten. It's a memory. It's there. Yet those houses never ever existed. And you know what? I tried to look up those kids at school, and they never existed either in school. But I would go down and play with them all the time. I believe her name was Monica, and I believe his name was Ricky. And I tried to look up everything I could on them, and I couldn't. But anyway, that to me is why I do believe in a lot of paranormal stories. Now, are there a lot of fake ones out there? Absolutely. But when you listen to one, just at least kind of open your mind to it and see what's happening, because there is so much to the unseen world that we don't really know about. Now, my near-death experience enough has caused me to go, well, yeah, of course, there's life after death. According to me, no, nobody could ever change that for me. Nobody. There's no proof anybody could give me that says there isn't life after death. I get it all the time. And being a medium, I'm constantly hearing stuff from people, and other people are validating it, saying, how did you know that? Because I don't know, I'm talking to them, you know? So I thought it was interesting to let you guys know this. If you have any weird experiences or anything, please leave it in the comments below. I read all my comments, especially since I only get like maybe 5 or 6 comments anyway, you know, but I still read them. I don't care how many there are, I'll read them. I'd like to know. And if you have anything you'd like to ask me, or you're curious about anything, if I have an experience on it or I know of it firsthand, I will make a video for it, because I just won't make a video if I don't understand something or I haven't had a direct experience with it. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. My name is David Hansel. This is The Spirit Experience. Please like, follow, and share this video, and comment if you can. It really helps me to get my channel to grow, so I can start putting out more of a better truth in an easy way to see consciousness and the afterlife and all these paranormal things. Have a great day, you guys. Bye-bye.